All right, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. This is my first training, first live training online of the new year. It's good to be back after a bit of a break. I've got a new microphone, so Merry Christmas to me, new microphone. So hopefully the audio is coming through pretty good for you guys. So things are going to be a little different this year. Last year when we were doing these trainings, I tried to keep them shorter. They had originally been scheduled for in person, so they were like scheduled for 2 hours, and we were generally under that. So this year, taking a different approach, given the fact that we know these are all going to be completely remote trainings like this, so in a webinar format. The goal is to keep them under an hour. So they're scheduled for an hour. My goal is to go 45 minutes and then leave the extra 15 minutes to answer questions. So 45 minutes of me giving you the content, and then the rest of the time will be reserved just for questions. So if you have questions while we're going along and you want to kind of get them in, because I'm going to answer them in order, then throw them in the Q&A, not in the chat. So I don't monitor the chat. If you do chat, you want to make sure you change the drop down from all panelists, which is how it defaults. That only comes to panelists like me. You want to change that to all panelists and attendees so other people in the webinar can see what you're saying. If you want me to see anything, then you need to send it via the Q&A. And then, like I said, I'll review that at the end. So today we're talking, it's nice and early in January. Today we're talking about goals. There's a good chance that you've heard me talk about goals before, especially if you're part of Pinellas Realtor organization watching this. I've done goal setting there. I think I counted something like 17 times in the past 3 years. This is going to be a little bit different. All right. Some of the same old stuff is there because the fundamentals haven't changed, but I want to take a little bit of a different approach. And the reason why is, as I see people, my students, if you will, or people that I've coached over the years that have attended these courses, and I've asked where they're at in the process, I've learned some things. And some of the things I've learned where people get hung up in this process, I really want to address those things today. All that being said, this will be a successful session if you take away 3 things. Number 1, I want you to take away an understanding of why goals succeed and why they fail. I want you to really understand it's because it's really almost always one of the same 5 core reasons. We're going to cover those. And so that way you can address those areas. Not everybody fails in the same way. All right. So number 1, I want you to understand where the goals fail. Number 2, I want you to have a new definition of what failure means and how to interpret it, because failure is not bad. Failure is a learning opportunity. So I want you to have a new definition of failing so that we fail forward. And number 3, I want to put to rest the dream big or go home mentality. And I want to give you the way to remain consistent that will actually get you much further along. What I'm going to bring you today is probably not the most popular message you've ever heard. It's probably a reason why I'm not often referred to as a motivational speaker. But hopefully what I'm giving you today, hopefully, I know what I'm giving you today is the reason for real results. And I've got the evidence to prove it. I've got people I've worked with in my own testimony to show that what I'm giving you today actually works. You can actually do it. It's not sexy. It's not rocket science. It's not some sort of, it's simple, but it's not easy. But what I'm giving you today is what the message we need. And it's definitely something you've heard before, but it's the hard, cold truth on how to be successful with anything we're trying to implement, whether business or personal. And it's so important that we lock this in, that we don't get delusional in our path to succeeding in our goals. So to kick us off, I just want to give you something to think about. I know last year it was unique. No one expected us for April to look like it did, April and beyond. That said, even go back to 2019, 2018, doesn't matter. You've set goals before. You've sought out to achieve them, and I'm sure you've achieved goals. But is there ever a gap between what you aim to do and what you actually accomplish? a gap between what you aim to do and what you actually accomplish. Guys, that gap, that space in between is a learning opportunity. It's a learning opportunity. It's not failure. I mean, it's failure, I guess, in the definition of I went for 1, I got 0, right? I went for 5, I got 4. There's that, but there's a learning opportunity there. I want you to think of something you've set out to do in the past. Maybe it's something simple. We could all use weight loss or something like that, right? We can use some sort of workout goal, or maybe it's a business goal, right? I wanted to have 3 transactions a month, but I just didn't get there. There's a gap. I set out and I didn't get there. That's the learning opportunity. I want you to think about that gap today, because we're addressing the gap today, because I want to take you from here to where you want to be. But I want to do it in a way that works. I'm not going to settle for anything but works. And you know what? What works might not be our preferred method, but it's the method that I'm going to coach you on. Okay. There's plenty of motivational speakers out there. You can step off of this broadcast now. There's plenty of motivational speakers out there that are going to tickle your ears, tell you they got a secret way, just try to pump you up, try to get you all full of self and think you're going to go out. Tomorrow's going to be totally different. You're going to go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Well, unless you're a Lamborghini, you're not doing that, right? You're a human being. We develop differently. So I'm going to give you what works. And with that, let's get started. So I'm going to share a little PowerPoint with you here, and we're going to spend the next 40 minutes going through it, and then we'll leave the rest of the time for questions. Here we go. PowerPoint. So my name is Tom Perrone. For those of you who don't know me, I own a little company called Stronghold Training. We do a lot of public speaking, consulting, coaching, stuff like that. But let's talk about goals. So here's my formula. I like formulas. I'm not a math guy at all. Unless there's dollar signs before it. I like math then, and the plus signs. But I'm not a big math person. But this formula I can get behind. So strategy, a good strategy, plus intensity. That doesn't mean super intense till we burn out. We're going to cover that. The right amount of intensity, appropriate intensity, plus consistency equals results. Strategy, sound, rational, logical, learning from history, learning from mistakes, learning from failures, strategy, plus an intensity. It's not just sitting back in the easy chair and letting it come to us. We work, plus consistency equals results. If we're being honest, there's probably times we've had a brilliant strategy and we just didn't feel like getting out of bed in the morning. If we're being honest, there's probably times we had a brilliant strategy. We were ready to run out there and we went at it. We went at it hard. We gave it all we got for a week and we couldn't continue that level of intensity. So we lost consistency. Guys, intensity and consistency are a balance. You can't blow it out of the water necessarily day one and expect to stay intact. Okay. Strategy plus intensity plus consistency, all three in harmony equals results. And that's going to be a little bit different for everybody, but we're going to talk about how to grow that for you. And goal setting is completely contingent upon this. So before we ever do any goal setting, I always bring up this slide. Before we talk about who we want to be and the heights we want to reach, we got to get to heart level. Because I can go into a room with any business person, any entrepreneur, and say, what do you want tomorrow? And we can all say bigger houses, more money, more independence, more freedom, and all that's great. But there's always sacrifice. I'd love to tell you you can have it all, and maybe you can, but a lot of times what we go for requires some sort of sacrifice. And this is why, and you'll understand this, goal setting starts with prioritization. What matters most is what matters most. So before I do any goal setting, I always like to put this slide in front of you. And actually, technically not the right slide because there's 8 categories now. I added an 8th category. So the 7 categories were business, finances, health, faith, family, friends, education. The 8th category that's not here is community. Community. I used to kind of sneak community into friends, social, but I think it stands on its own. So these 7 categories plus the 8th category, community. What's most important to you? They're all important. But sacrifice occurs when we're trying to achieve new heights. No pain, no gain. Most people would say, I wouldn't sacrifice my family for success. Well, great. Then family goes above business and finances, but that's going to have an impact on what you do. It's going to have an impact in your time. It's going to have an impact on your focus. It's going to have an impact in your priorities, right? So you got to get your priorities in order, because if you don't do this, you could run 1,000,000 miles in one direction and realize you got too far off the track and now you got to come back. So take a minute, look at these 7 categories, add the 8th community, get your house in order. Just write down your top 3. Your top 3. Hydration can be one of your top priorities in 2021. Your body is like 80% water, so it's kind of important. Just stay hydrated. All right. Got your top 3? Hope you do. Let's move on. You're not going to sacrifice those. Most of the time when you go to a goal setting class, or you talk to someone like me who's done coaching and is trying to get you to new heights, this is kind of what the outcome looks like. We're going to take you from 0 to hero. You're going to climb mountains. It's going to be massive growth. I see it all the time. I love the workout stuff. Gain 10 pounds of muscle in 30 days. Maybe. Let me ask you a question. Are you that guy? Is that you? Do you think that guy was at home binging out on Netflix, eating bonbons, and said, man, I'm going to get outside a little bit today, and he just scaled a mountain? Of course not. Took years of work, years of training, years of learning to do what he's doing right there. Now, we don't zoom out here. This might be a tiny cliff. Maybe it's his first run. I don't know. But usually when we set out for goal setting, we get a little overexcited. We come with a lot of intensity. We might even have a strategy that works on paper, but we end up not being able to make the climb. We have a hard time with the consistency. And it's because our strategy didn't take into play some healthy doses of reality, which would have helped us get a little bit further. So it goes from this, what we think it's going to look like, to kind of like that, maybe a little less buff, right? Kind of hanging by your grip, feet dangling. And, when you watch like, those what is it? The American Ninja type stuff, those things, those guys and gals got amazing grip, right? Their grip is tremendous. You ever tried hanging from a bar for just like 3 minutes? It's a reality check on how good our grip is. You ever tried going from making 0 phone calls a day to 300 phone calls a day? You ever try going from not running at all to running 10 miles? Guess what? You could probably do it. You could probably do it day 1. You could probably do it day 2. But by day 3, you're going to need some recovery time. So if we're being honest, is that really the best way to start? So what should it look like? What goal setting should really look like is a little bit more like this. Clear steps. Is it a big deal to go from that first step to that second step? No. Guess what? By the time you get to the top there, you're going to be a little bit sore. But then if it levels out again, you're going to get stronger. And when you come back, that incline can increase a little bit more. Your body, your mind, your will change as we make gradual increases, gradual intensity increases. And over time, with that consistency, you'll reach paths that start to look like this. Notice the incline here, guys. The incline here is no greater than this incline. But look at the altitude. Look at that altitude. Super high. One path all the way up here. If you're one of those people that says, I'm not interested in short results, I'm not interested in slow and gradual, I'm interested in get rich quick, get there fast. Okay, that's great. But I'm not your guy, because I'm not a gambler. I believe the lottery is a fast way to $1 million, but I don't play it. All right, because I want a consistent, guaranteed result that I can do. And what I have found is that we substitute what we can do for a false hope and what is unlikely. And that's why many people fail. So the first philosophy you've got to grab a hold of right here at the beginning is you got to commit yourself to the long-term disciplined approach of slow, gradual increases, because we never want to sacrifice ground. We don't want to make big gains one day, which anyone can do, and require 5 days to recover because we couldn't stay consistent. We don't want to just beat our head against the wall and say it's going to be different this time because I got a lot of emotion. Emotion is fleeting, guys. It gets hard. When it gets hard, we got to be able to keep our intensity and our consistency. So our strategy needs to take that into consideration. And I see coaches all the time throwing strategies out there that it's like going to someone who's never worked out before and saying you're going to bench press 300 pounds tomorrow. Maybe once, but that's not good enough. All right. So here is where that formula leads to. So if we're going to take that philosophy and boil that down into 5 pillars, if you will, as to how we would actually accomplish our goals, here's what it comes down to. So the outer layer of the onion is our vision. We got to know where we're going, right? We have to have an idea. And I'm not talking about just a specific destination. I'm talking about a why, right? I'm going to grow my business this year because, and that because has to be deep, right? It can't just be because, hey, more money is better than less money. We got to be really fixated on our why. We got to really say to not do this is to sacrifice core values within me, right? For me not to make the phone calls I need to make to grow my business, for me not to invest the time, for me not to stay consistent. It's not even in me because this is so attached to something so much deeper in me. You know, if I'm telling you, like, fleeting vanity things don't work in this. If you think you're going to work out just because, abs are really motivating, you know what's a lot more motivating than that? Staying alive a long time for your kids. At least for me. You got to, maybe abs work for you. You got to find that deeper why and that vision. You have to have a vision of what tomorrow looks like, what 30 days looks like, and it's got to be a realistic vision, okay? So cast a vision of what 30 days looks like, 6 months and a year, where you want to be, and make sure that's something that you're willing to suffer for. Make sure that's something you're willing to sacrifice and sweat for, so that that deeper why, that driving force, can motivate you. Then we set specific measurements with our goals, sub-goals, and habits. And those may or may not exactly be achieved, but that gap between what we were hoping for and what our goal actually is, that's going to be a learning opportunity to go back and reset where we need to our strategy. So our strategy is nothing more than those little steps, how we're going to get there and how we're going to stay accountable. From our strategy comes our plan to do's, and then we're going to have some real accountability. So we never actually have to change our goal. We just change our strategy as we learn. It doesn't mean we give up. It means we get stronger. And I'm going to show you how that works. That's it. We're going to look at this a lot more as we go on. So starting again with that vision, let's give you some examples of how this works out on a piece of paper. So first, you take one of those categories of priority. Take health, for example. And then you would say, okay, what's my vision? Well, my vision is to be thin. I want to be healthy. I'd like to be athletic. I like to get out and play basketball, kick the soccer ball around, and not throw up. I'd like to run a 5K. But why? I see myself as a runner, eating well, feeling good. I see myself being available for my family longer. I see myself setting a good example. Honestly, you can link health with just about anything you want to do, because the more you can convince yourself or dedicate yourself to an overall healthy physical approach, it generally comes back to our mindset, our work ethic, and so many other areas. So your why can get really deep on that. Hey, I want to be healthy because it helps me get out of bed in the morning and just feel good. There's a lot of reasons. Therefore, to not do it is to not feel good and to be miserable. However you want to link it to that deep why, we get a vision for what the better you looks like. Here's an example with the priority of family. I want to be a good and caring wife and mother. Of course, we want to have good relationships with our family. See yourself being available, sharing life together. We have these visions, and we need to capture them. We need to write them out. We need to put them down somewhere. By the way, it's a horizon. We never quite reach that perfection. Our vision isn't about something we're going to one day get to. Our vision is about a core value, a core belief that's so strong, it's constantly driving us forward. We never quite get there, but we're not unsatisfied because the vision is something we're going after. It's a philosophy of life. So then behind that comes our goals. So once I kind of have a vision, as I think through my vision of what that might look like, there's an example there. Certain goals, sub goals, just smaller goals that support the bigger goal, and certain habits, just routines that we do, start to support that vision. But these are specific destinations. Think of it like this. You're a mariner. You sail on a boat. I was in the Navy, so I always bring things back to sailing. So you want to go, you're on a boat and you're headed west, right? You're going towards the horizon. You're never going to reach the horizon, but that's the direction you're going. That's the idea of vision. The priority is whatever you're going towards. I'm going towards a new future. I'm going towards discovery, right? A better tomorrow. I'm headed that way, headed towards the horizon, which I'll never reach, but eventually I'm going to hit a goal. What's my goal? The first island, right? The first barrier island. That goal can't be the vision. That's the first mistake I see most people making in coaching, is they make their vision a goal. And that's impossible, right? You're not going to reach the horizon. You need to have a goal that you can reach. So that first barrier island maybe is 3 transactions a month. Maybe it's $1 million sold. Maybe it's 10 pounds lost. We set our sights on that as our first goal. And here's why, hear me on this. Here's why we set goals: to learn, not necessarily to achieve, to learn. On our way to our goal, we're going to have successes and failures, but no matter what, we're going to have learning. On our way there, we're going to set certain goals. This, say, $1 million sold, and the next 3 months, $1 million sold. That's our goal. We're headed there. We're going to build a strategy to get there. You're going to have certain habits to get there. You're going to have little sub goals to get there. And on your way, you're going to be learning. Not learning who you are. You're a bad person. You're not good at this. You're weak. No, you're going to be learning where you need to get stronger while getting stronger. You're going to be learning weak spots while getting stronger. You're going to be learning strengths while leveraging them. That's what's going to happen. So we set those goals, sub goals, and habits, and we try to make them something we can reach in a relative amount of time. Because if we stretch it out, we're asking our willpower to maybe climb something a step too high. So we're going to set little goals that are within our reach, that are within our capability. I want you to think in 2 different terms. I want you to think in terms of growth. I want you to think in terms of foundation. Right? We want to run a nice, easy, flat path and then grow a little bit higher, and then a nice, easy, flat path and grow a little bit higher. And every time you step up, we want that step up to be within our power. Maybe it is within your power, but if it's such a big step up that it burns you out, that you can't even continue to be consistent, it was too big of a step. The step up needs to be something that doesn't destroy you. And again, this is a major mistake people I've coached in the past have made. They want to go from 0 phone calls to 200 phone calls a day. And you can do it once, but you're not going to do it all week, most likely. And I'm not here to rain on your parade. I just want you to succeed. So if you've never made 30 phone calls a day, why don't we start with 15? Let's do 15 for 4 days. And then on Friday, let's do 30. And then the next week, let's do 30 all week. And then on Friday, let's do 45. See what I mean? That's how it gets done. So we set those little goals along the way. Sub goals are nothing more than what supports those goals. Sub goals can be incredibly small, but they give us a sense of direction. It's like those little tracks along the rails. Because a lot of times when we set goals, we don't realize there's a lot more involved than just doing that thing. Goal is a finish line. Those little sub goals are important too. And even smaller than that are the action steps, which we're going to get to. So don't overcomplicate it. Just make sure your goals are small enough. And if they're not, add some sub goals to get you there, so you're constantly feeling the feeling of progress and growth. And habits are just the things that we're routinely doing. We got to develop healthy habits. So start small. Guess what happens if you don't make a goal for a day, or a sub goal, or a habit? We go, oh, there's a gap. What do we do with the gap? Friends, we learn from the gap. Sometimes learning is, all right, I went a little too strong there. Let me peel back just a little bit. But what are we not going to give up? We might have to give up a little intensity because it was too much. What are we not going to give up, guys? Consistency. Drop back a little bit. It's like you had too much weight on the bar. You couldn't get that last rep. It's all right. I'm either going to come back tomorrow and try. Maybe I'm a little stronger tomorrow. I'm going to take 5 pounds off the bar. I'm going to get it up. That's going to make me stronger. Then I can add 5 pounds in the next week. This is the humbling way to grow stronger and stay consistent. I mean, lots of people that can do amazing things once. Guys, I'm impressed by the people who have been steadily, slowly growing their whole life, learning from every opportunity of failure that they've experienced. Those are the people that stay consistent. Those are the people we rely on. They're ironclad. So how do we actually write these goals? You've probably heard this before. We write them as SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. What's that look like? Well, this is how it doesn't look. I want to lose weight, at least 5 to 10 pounds. It's nice. Kind of a New Year's resolution, if you will. By the way, we are exactly 9 days away from all resolutions failing. They say 93%, I believe, of New Year's resolutions fail by January 21st. So that's how long we have to go. So this is how you write it. I will lose 10 pounds by December 31st. I will make 20 phone calls by January 15th. Those are the types of goals we're looking for. Specific. They can be measured. 10, it's measurable. They need to be time bound. And when we talk about actually making them achievable, making them realistic, we're talking about those little steps. It's the part of SMART goals people forget. They go, well, I mean, I could fly to the moon. It's scientifically possible. Is that realistic that you're going to fly to the moon? Maybe we should start with just running a mile, right? Let's start with running a mile. Maybe your first sub goal is to get out of the house, put on some running shoes, and just take your first run, right? Let's not run so fast that we pull something our first day, but getting out of the house and running. Guys, you know what gets in the way of almost all goal achievement? Pride. Pride. Always the enemy of the overachiever. Instead, I want you to be humble, be underrated, set those little goals, and let's stay consistent. Learn from them. By the way, if it was super easy, add weight to the bar. If it's super easy, you learned. It's not a big deal. But be careful, because pride gets in the way. Remember, we're not just looking for results one day. We're looking for consistency. In order to have that, better off keeping it small, especially if you've never been a person who's been consistent before. I get people come to me all the time. Tom, you gave me some really small goals, buddy. Like I told you, it was really easy. You told me just make 20 phone calls a day. Dude, I made 20 phone calls every day. It was super easy. Great, do it another week. What? I can't get to 50 phone calls a day this week? I want to see you be consistent. Why? Because when I first met with you, you never showed me anywhere you'd been consistent in your life. So I want to see consistency. They come back another week. You know what? It was actually hard to stay with it. Yeah, because it was fresh. Now it's old. Now it's boring. Now consistency comes in. Now the wear starts to come in. Endurance, discipline is starting to form. I wasn't worried about you putting up big numbers. I'm worried about you growing in strength and discipline and endurance. That's why I want to keep these goals achievable. All right. By the way, it doesn't mean super easy. You got to stress yourself. You've got to stress yourself to get stronger. But consistency is what we're striving for. So there again is the onion, the goal onion. Vision supported by goals, habits. Then we come to the strategic plan. So I've set this vision of what I want my business to look like. I've set some great goals along the year. I've made them realistic. I haven't killed myself. I'm looking at things that I can actually make consistent, and I'm ready to get out there and succeed and fail and learn. What's my strategy for getting there? To properly strategize, you have to invest a ton of time and ask a lot of difficult questions, and even sometimes get experts to throw some shade on what you're doing, to throw some doubts, to throw some criticism, to ask the tough questions, to challenge you, to make sure your strategy is not just optimism, but it's realism. Plan to spend for every goal you make at least 20 minutes really flushing it out and asking yourselves a lot of questions. What does that look like? They look like questions like this. Hey, if I want to go from making $0 a month to $20,000 a month, what needs to change for this to happen? What specifically will I need to do? What challenges am I going to face, internal to myself, external from the world? Hey, what have I tried in the past? Why is it going to be different this time? Let's be honest. What worked? What didn't work? Where do I tend to fail? And considering all these things, how should I move forward? I hope one of the things you realize is if your problem was always consistency and not strategy, that we need to dial it back and slowly grow. That might be the big thing. Either way, this is what strategy looks like. You step outside of yourself emotionally as much as you can. You come as a critic, not as an optimist, and you pick apart those goals and you put together a plan for getting there. All right. Well, how do I know I've got enough of a plan? How do I know my plan is approved, Coach Tom? Your plan is approved by me. Not that I'm the big judge of your plan, but I look at a strategy as being complete when every specific action step that needs to be done in order to accomplish that goal could be calendared. For me, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. So every action step must be calendared or at least known so where it can be calendared. And then every area where it's likely to fall off the beam, I want to know you've got enough accountability there that you can't fail. That's a strategy that I call ironclad or investor worthy, right? Would the bank give you money because you're an optimistic, smart, capable, motivated person? No. They want to see an ironclad plan so they know they get their money back plus 3% or 12% or whatever they're giving you the loan for. You should be the same way with your own strategy. Okay, great. You're optimistic. You're motivated. That's wonderful. That's helpful. It's even necessary. But what I want to see now is the proof, right? Here is every little action step I'm going to take. If I can't take one, guess what? I'm not lost. I just pick back up where I left off, learn from it. And the areas where the challenges are really going to be, because every strategy is going to have its weak spots, we're going to put some accountability there. You're going to get some help. That's called true accountability. So back to our onion. We've got our vision, core values, it's deep. We got our goals, sub-goals, and habits, those little markers to getting there. Little barrier islands, if you will, on your way to your horizon, which is your vision. Now we've actually sat down, spent a ton of time on all those goals, sub-goals, and habits, asked a ton of questions, and come up with little action steps and accountability. Well, remember, if you did your strategy right, you can see the two layers of the middle of the onion are the plan to-dos and the true accountability that came out of the strategic plan. So your calendar is going to start looking like this. Your calendar is going to start filling up. And it's also going to help you be consistent. Why? Try to make it where you don't have to do more than 3 things a day. 3 major important things a day should be your max. And as long as you got it all on the calendar, you're fine. You don't have to keep it all up here stressing. That just exhausts you. So we've done our plan. We get our little action steps. They're calendared. We don't have to think anymore. It was worth taking the time at the beginning so we don't have to think now. All we have to do is adjust our strategy when something doesn't work as we thought it would. We just go back and adjust our strategy and we're fine. So what's true accountability? Well, the book definition of accountability is basically a willingness to accept responsibility for yourself. So you should be accountable. True accountability is my definition, Tom's definition of accountability, which is not just I'm going to hold myself accountable, but I'm going to take ironclad action to ensure I never fail to take responsibility. I call it handcuffing yourself to your goal. Let's say you've had a goal to run every day and you've had it a million times, and maybe you've even done it a few times before. Maybe you've even run 30 days consistently before. Why do you fail? True accountability is something you're going to put in place so you never fail again. Maybe it's hiring a personal trainer, paying someone $350 a month to make sure you just show up at the gym because your problem's just been showing up at the gyms. $350 might get you there. Oh, I've got problems with getting on the phone too much. Well, let's turn off your phone while you're working. Oh, I can't. Well, you might need to if distractions are the problem. Maybe you need to get off social media completely. Maybe you need to have a spouse lock down your app store so you can't get on there anymore because you find yourself living on your phone. It's not going to be different this time. Maybe you need certain internet filters. Maybe you need to leave your car at the office and Uber home so you have to ride your bike to work the next day. Maybe that's the only way you'll ever do it. Maybe you need more partners in your life that are going to make sure you make those phone calls because you have an appointment to make phone calls with them. I've known many real estate agents that they just couldn't do the phone calls till I paired them up with another agent and said, hey, go make 25 calls each together. They did it. They enjoyed it. Maybe you need automatic deductions from your checking account every week so that you actually start saving like you had planned on. Guys, those are the differences of true accountability. They're hardcore. You can't get out of them. They're squirm free, right? No matter how much I squirm, when do we put that stuff in place? When we need to. When in an honest assessment during your strategy, you go, this is looking really good right now. I'm optimistic, but history tells me I tend to get a little weak here, a little soft in the belly here. I'm going to put a little weight belt there to keep me from struggling. I'm going to handcuff myself there while it's necessary. I'm going to get a spot on the bar, right? True accountability helps. Again, strategy considers an intensity that we can consistently perform. We increase our intensity gradually to maintain our consistency, and our strategy allows for this. When we fail, strategy is what we go back to. We readjust, but we're always growing stronger. As we do something for a long period of time, it gets easier. It gets easier. As you consistently do it, it gets easier, so we can increase our intensity. So what ends up happening is it actually never feels like you increased your intensity much at all. See, when you've done something for, let's say you're going to knock on doors. It's a part of your strategy. You say, I'm going to do 20 doors this week. The first time you do it, you feel it. It's new. You're getting kind of comfortable. The next week you do another 20. The next week you do another 20. Now, it's kind of easy to get out there and knock on 20 doors. So what am I going to do? I'm going to knock on 30 next week. It's probably not going to feel any harder than the first week because we've already built some of that intensity. We've already built some of that consistency. So it's just a little bit of an addition. And this is what we need to do when we set our goals. I'm going to do open houses this year. All right, why don't we start with 1 next month? Then let's do 2 the next month. Then let's do 2 the next month. Then let's do 3. Let's focus on making every open house count instead of just throwing a bunch of numbers up there and trying to hit the numbers. 12 reps in the gym don't matter unless they're 12 good reps. Running a mile doesn't matter unless you're running appropriately. We don't want to hurt ourselves. We're aiming for consistency. This is how it works. So let's take one step back here. I told you in the beginning, think of a goal you set. Maybe you've set it multiple times and you keep failing. That failing is good. It's a learning opportunity. I call it the gap. So we've got a gap between what we aim to do and what we actually did. This thing that we call failure is a learning zone. We're going to jump into the learning zone. What are we going to ask ourselves? What was my vision? What was my driving force? Was it deep enough? Maybe I need to tighten that up. Maybe I shouldn't have been doing it at all. What was my actual goal? Was it way too big? Was I asking myself to go from 0 to 100 overnight? You need to dial back the goal a little bit. Maybe it's that I couldn't just do that big leap. Maybe the gap was too big. Maybe I just need to tighten the gap a little bit. Get some consistency first. What was my actual strategy? Had I thought it through enough? How will I know? Well, did I have every step calendared, or did I have a goal and I got like 2 steps down the road and I realized I had 100 more steps and I just got scattered and I lost sight? It's called overwhelm derailment. It's the number one reason my clients fail. They get overwhelmed. There's a way to avoid overwhelm. Simplify what you're actually trying to do. We try to do too much, intensity too high, number one. And number two, you've calendared all your to-dos. It should be fine. Now, I've seen people that have calendared every 15 minutes of their day and they can't stick with that. Why? It's an intensity that's beyond you. But you can calendar 3 things a day in line with your goals, in line with your vision. So let's have a strategy that's actually wise, actually smart, and plan no more than 3 things a day along these lines. And then if you've done all that and you've really tried executing it, it just comes to the fact that it's just no matter how much, just too hard. Maybe you need to start even smaller than pride's allowing, but you're just like, Tom, I've done that. I'm getting to a point where I can't even walk to the gym and just walk home. Like I just can't even get in there or whatever it is. I can't even pick up the phone. I just can't even, it just makes me sick. Maybe you've been through a lot. Maybe it's just depression. Who knows? Anxiety is a lot of things. That's where the accountability comes in. Don't do it alone. Get a partner, get something in place to get you started, that nudge started. And then once it starts to rewire your brain, the accountability can come away because the driving force, the habits, the strategy will take over. That's how it works. So what do you do now? What you do now is you need to go back and you need to write 5 SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound goals. And you need to run it through the onion. Run it through the onion filter. What's my vision? Like we said in the beginning. What's my priority? Then what's my vision? What goals, sub-goals, and habits are going to support that vision? Spend some time, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, a whole day, a whole week, strategize. And you know you're done with the strategy when every little action step has come out. Now, I say that within reality, you're not going to say, wake up, walk to the mailbox, check the mail. I'm talking about the actual action steps that are necessary, the little things, the little, I can go and do this, not conceptual. I'm talking about actual actions that take time, end up on your calendar. We space those out so that it's easy breezy enough to do it. And then we get accountability in place where we know it's going to be a struggle. And we aim for strategy plus intensity plus consistency. That is how it works. The good news, if you actually follow this system, you don't have to keep all your goals bouncing around in your head anymore. The plan is made. You can just stop, relax, get out of here and focus on doing instead of thinking. So you'll accomplish a lot more than you otherwise would have. You don't have to get overwhelmed because if you had 10 goals and you only had 3 things a day, you just wake up and do those 3 things. You don't have to have a million want tos. You just have the actual to-dos. So a lot of people have want tos. I want to, I'm hoping to, I'm planning to. What's your calendar look like? It's not there. We're not there then. We haven't done our strategy. We got to get to to-dos. And to-dos that has an intensity and consistency you can handle. This helps you live one day at a time. Be present. Be in the now. Don't put your happiness off in one day future. Be happy now. You're working towards it now. And every time you fail, you're learning now. You're no longer going to be tripped up from that one step, whether it was accountability, lack of strategy, whatever. It's going to keep you from success. Every time you find a failure, you go to the onion, you take the 5 pillars of success, you look at your goal and go, where did I fail? Was it strategy? Was it accountability? What was it? We make the adjustment. Was it too much? Was I too intense? We make the adjustment. And it should look like this when you're done. This is the picture I expect people to bring me when they have a plan. You go, Tom, that was a lot of planning. That's why I normally don't like to plan more than 6 months out. Sometimes only 30 days. Matter of fact, 80% of the goals I set, I don't go beyond 30 days. 30 days in, I analyze. And over time, as I've learned to be consistent, when I look, I see a lot of height. Doesn't feel any more intense, but when I look down, I'm like, well, I'm up on the mountain here. I'm up on the mountain. All right. Do I trip? Do I have to pull over and take rest stops? Do I learn? Do I push myself too hard? Every day. I make those mistakes. Come back and learn. Keep going. Consistency is the entrepreneur's problem. Usually it's not intensity. It's too much intensity. We need humility, consistency. That's the strategy that gets us there. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. Every day we're getting stronger in these areas and learning to grow in this way. All right, guys, that is the presentation. Right on time. I'm standing by for your questions. If you have got questions, you can drop them in the Q&A. Now, if you're watching this online somewhere, not on the webinar, if you didn't register for the webinar, you're watching this on some YouTube channel or one of my strategic partners, someone has shared this with you. I won't see your questions here, but if you have joined via the webinar through Pinellas Realtor, then I can see your questions. So just drop into that Q&A and let me know your questions. I'll give you a minute to do that while I catch my breath and hydrate. All right. So typically with a session like this is the response I will get. Kind of already knew some of that stuff. Why am I not doing it? Or, hey, I need more coaching. You probably don't, right? So this is what I want you to do. Go back and analyze your past year. What can you learn from it? Analyze even the year before that. Look at the things you've set up and what needs to change. And then sit down, get out a legal pad, write out your visions. Make sure you do your priorities. Write out your visions under each of those priorities, what that looks like, the horizon level dream. Then I want you to write your specific goals, sub-goals, and habits that will support those things. Then you're going to go to the whiteboard and you're going to just absolutely spend a lot of time asking questions about those things, flush out the strategy until all the action steps get on your calendar where you don't have to think about what you're going to do anymore. It's all been planned out for you. Be honest about your weak spots, put the accountability where you need. To do this well, I suggest you start with just 3 to 5. 3 to 5 business goals. You can do 2 or 3 personal goals. 3 to 5. And they should be related to your top 3 priorities. And make sure you don't sacrifice your priorities as you go through this process, but that you uphold your priorities through this process. Anyone who has done that, if they would like to email that to me, Tom with an H, THOM at strongholdtraining.com. If you want to send me your plan or a picture of it or have questions on the strategy, I'm happy to answer and let you know if I think it has become ironclad, if it is a stronghold worthy plan, or where I think you might need to go back to the drawing board. Start small, get consistent. For those of you who came here hoping for something a little easier, you've learned something today. You've learned something today. I want you to apply this immediately. If you were willing to give me 45 minutes of your time, I want you to give you another 45 minutes. Sit down and start it. Don't go, that's good, I'm going to look to do that. At least in the next 5 minutes, go to your calendar, carve out an hour to start this process. Suggest you do it while it's still fresh in your mind. All right. Questions I've just been ignoring. So some people are asking if they can come back and get a recording of this. If you go to the Stronghold Training YouTube channel, once it's done buffering, it should be there. If not, email me. I'll make sure you get a copy. I did record it, but I've also put it up on YouTube already. So you should be able to watch this back on YouTube. For the rest of you, if it went in one ear, it was just a little motivational speech and it's out the other, I'm afraid you may have missed it. I want to make sure if you're hanging on here, take an action step immediately. Immediately. Okay. Good intentions die fast. Let's take some real action. You don't typically think yourself into right acting, but we act our way into right thinking. So get out there and do it. I know you can. If you have strategy plus intensity plus consistency, I know you will get results. All other plans, well, someone wins the lottery every week. Maybe it'll be you, but I'm hoping you're the one who goes and achieves it with the hard work and the thought and the strategy and the intensity that actually gets you there. That's why you typically see the people who have achieved have earned those muscles. All right, guys, I appreciate you listening in today. Make sure I've answered any questions. Looks like I've gotten to them all. Appreciate you guys. I will